And welcome to this series on JMeter beginner tutorial. So this is the ninth session and today we are going to see how to test web services or API in JMeter. Okay, so let us begin with some basics and let us quickly understand what an API is, right? So if I have to expand the abbreviation API stands for Application Programming Interface. Okay, but what actually does this mean? Okay, so let us understand this with a very simple example. So suppose we go to a restaurant. Okay, so there is our table, right, where the food is served, and then there is kitchen from where the food is served and the food is prepared, right? Now in between our table and the kitchen there is a person who communicates between these two places, and that person is called as waiter. Okay, so we give our order to the waiter goes to the kitchen, communicates our order to the kitchen prepares the order, the waiter again takes the order from the kitchen and then delivers it to our table. Okay, so this communication between table and kitchen is done by this person called waiter, and we can say the waiter is doing the role of an API here, right? So to understand it in more deeply, or to look at some real-time examples, let us go to some travel website. Let us go to makemytrip.com. Okay, so if I go to any travel website like makemytrip.com, uh, let me go to flights. I'm selecting New Delhi to Mumbai and one and search flights. Okay, so I have given some filters, and based on that filter this particular website is searching for all the flights between Delhi to Mumbai on those particular dates, which is 10th of August, and within few seconds it has given me all these options from various airlines. Okay, we have Go Air, we have SpiceJet, we have Indigo, Vistara, Jet Airways, and so on. Now, what do you think? How did this particular website, which is Make My Trip, manage to go into the servers of all these different airlines and go into their databases and get us all the information in few seconds? Do you think this particular website, Make My Trip, has access to the databases of all these airlines servers? That cannot be true, because these airlines will not expose their database to any third party for obvious reasons, for security concerns. Now the other option can be these airlines are dumping their information every few hours on some particular server or some particular location from where Make My Trip or and other travel website are fetching the information and displaying it on their own website. But even that cannot be true, because if that is true, then what happens if this particular flight, which is SpiceJet, gets cancelled just a few minutes ago and here it is showing as available, and if I book it here I will run into a lot of chaos. Okay, so even that cannot be true, that the websites, the airlines are dumping their data and the travel websites are taking it from there. So what is actually happening here is all these airlines have exposed some APIs which can be used by other websites like Make My Trip and Yatra.com and so on. And using those APIs, they can give a call to these servers of these airlines and get real-time information from there and display it on their website. Okay, so what is happening here is, in terms of web services, there is a client and there is a server, and there is a person who is communicating between client and server, and that is what we call as API. As there was waiter in the first example, here we have API which is doing all this communication. Now we use API because They are very fast, easy, and very efficient to share information and communicate between two different entities or servers, right? So this was very brief about web services. I will have a separate session on the details, but this session is about JMeter and testing API on JMeter. So let us begin that. And we have two kind of web services, SOAP and REST. Okay, now again the difference here is the protocol, the format in which the message goes and the response comes, but again the details we will discuss separately. Here we are discussing how to test the APIs in JMeter. So let us begin and let us say how to test REST APIs with JMeter. Let us begin with this. Okay, so step 1 will be add HTTP request sampler. So we can actually have two samplers here. Let me first add a thread group, and inside the thread group let me add a sampler. One is HTTP request, and I will add one more sampler here, which is SOAP XML RPC request. Now see, I am using the latest version of JMeter, which is 3.0. If you are using any older version, you will get a SOAP web services option also here, but that is deprecated, and we have now SOAP XML RPC request, which can be used for both SOAP as well as REST request, right? So I will show you how to test a REST API first and then a SOAP API. So REST API can be tested using an HTTP request sampler as well as SOAP XML RPC request. Okay, so we can also, I will say, or add this sampler. We can use either one. Okay, now the second step will be to add REST API details. So now we have to add the details of our REST API here. Okay, now in your case you must be having the details of your REST API, but in my case I will go to the internet and let me search for some publicly available API. So let me search some weather REST API. Let me go to this one. Okay, open weather map. So this is this services are giving their APIs which can tell the weather from some particular location. Okay, and they also have given a UI here. I can actually type any name of a city and say search, and it will show you the weather of that particular city. Okay, so let me go here, let me go to API section and look at what kind of APIs they have. So they are saying to access the API you need to sign up for an API key. Okay, so you actually have to sign up and then you will get a API key which you can use in your REST API call, and the API call will be something like this. Okay, so let me just copy this here. Let me also copy this website for quick reference, and you can go here if you want to do a test on your own. Okay, so let me again go to API and let us see how do they. I'm going to API doc, and this is how they call the API. Okay, we have to give the city name here, and we can call the API like this. So this is how we call the API. So if I click here, as of now it will show you invalid API key. Because this API key is invalid, we have to use some valid API key. So you can sign up and get your API key. In my case, I have already signed up and got an API key, which is this one. Okay, so if I add my API key here and run this again, yes, now I am getting some response. Okay, so I can also say New Delhi here and I will get the weather of New Delhi. Okay, so this is the API call we are making. Okay, this is the API call we are making. Now let us see, there are different parts in this API call. Okay, let us see what all parts are there. So okay, this particular part, which is api.openweather.org, this is the web server or the API name or the IP of this particular web services. Okay, then this part after the IP, this part is the path where we have to go, and then the rest of the part, these are the parameters. Okay, so Q, which is the name of the city, and the app ID, which is our API key, are the parameters, right? So now how to add this to our HTTP request? We will take this server name or IP and add this here, server name or IP. Okay, then this part will come as the path that we have to go to. Okay, this is a GET request, so I'm leaving it as it is, and this is HTTP. And then these are the two parameters, right? So this section we have to add the parameters. So I'm saying Q equals to New Delhi, and then one more parameter, which is app ID. Sorry, app ID, which is equal to this value. Okay, now my REST request is ready. I can run it and validate. To view the results, I am going to add a listener, and I will add view results in tree, and let me now just run it. So I can also save this. Let me say this as API test. Now see, my request is successful. It is giving me 200 code. This is the request that went to the server, and I'm getting message error not found, city COD 404. Let me go back to my request and see what is the error here. I think there was a extra slash. Let me run this again. Yes, this time I have got the weather of New Delhi. Okay, now see, this was an error message, but still this is showing in green. Why? Because our request did go to the server and we did receive a 200 response code. The reason was, we the server was not able to find the city with whatever details we have given, so it has responded with a message from their server, but our request went to their server. That's why it's showing green, and we can add assertions here to make sure that we are getting the actual response or not, right? So now our request is fine. Okay, now see, how do we add this to this particular SOAP XML RPC request? So in that case, I can actually give this entire URL. I do not have to divide it like I did it before. I can give this entire URL here, and I will uncheck this. And now let me see. I will clear the results and run this again. And see, I am getting the same response here. So this is the advantage of using this SOAP XML RPC request. You do not have to create a request like this. You can directly give the actual URL of your entire request here. Okay, so this is how we do testing for a REST API. So I can write step number 3 is run and validate. Okay, so this is how we test our REST API. Okay, now let us go to SOAP. How to test a SOAP API? Okay, again, step 1 will be the same thing. Here we are adding a SOAP XML RPC sampler. Okay, So let me add one more sampler here, soap XML RPC request. Let me take this up. Let me also rename this. This is REST and this is soap. Okay. Now, how to add a soap request? So step 2 is add details of the soap API request. Now again, in your case, you must be having your SOAP API which you want to test, and you can give the information of that SOAP API here. In my case, I do not have it, so I will again go to I'll go to the internet and try to search for some SOAP API. So let me search for a again for a weather SOAP API. Let me go to this global weather WSTL. Let me go to this one. Okay, yes, they have their SOAP APIs here. Okay. Okay, they have get cities by country. So let me go to this particular API, get cities by country. So this is an API where we can give the country name and it will fetch all the cities of that country. Okay, so let us use this particular API to test. So one thing we need is the URL, which is the endpoint of the API. So let me search what is the endpoint of this API. Okay, so this is the endpoint actually. So you must be having the endpoint of your API. So this is the endpoint. I have to give the URL here, and then in the send soap action I will have to give this particular URL. Okay, and then I have to give the body of the API. So from this XML request starting from envelope, I'm going to give it here, and let me give country name as Australia. Okay, now my soap request is ready. Let us test this. I'll clear all the results and run this. Now see, this is the I am getting 200. Okay, this is the request that went to the server, and I have got the response with all the cities of Australia. Okay, I can change this to, let's say, Canada, and run this again. So the SOAP request is taking some time, the rest is very fast, and again I have got all the cities of Canada here. Okay, let me test with India. I will clear the results and run this again. Now I have got all the cities of India. Okay, so now we know our APIs are working both REST as well as SOAP. Okay, so step number 3 is run and validate. Okay, so let me also add one more listener here, which is view results in table. Okay, and let me run it one more time to see what is the actual response time. So see, the HTTP request is taking this much, the rest, and this is the SOAP, right? Now I know all my APIs are ready and they are working fine. Now what I can do is I will disable this particular listener, view results in tree, because this is a memory consuming listener, and now I can give my actual load to test the performance of the API. So I want to test with 10 threads now. So I will give 10 threads and run this. Now see, all my REST APIs are passing, but my SOAP API has performance issues. It is failing at several locations. Okay, sometimes it is passing, but it is failing because we are testing with 10 users, 10 threads. So we know that the performance of our API is not good when 10 concurrent users access the API. So we can get some more details using some steps we learned in earlier sessions, and then we can troubleshoot this API. Okay, so this is how we use JMeter for testing web services or API. Hope you like it. Thank you.